We're back with another episode of Franchise My Business, a podcast for franchisors hosted by franchisors. I'm your host, Kevin Oldham, and today we're going to talk about technology and we're going to talk about kids. Two things that I think if you've been a parent in the past decade, is something that is front and center because kids today are coming almost out of the womb with computers attached to them. And today's conversation is going to be about how we can help those kids be producers in the technology space versus consumers. Got a gentleman on the phone, or not on the phone. We're on video, guys. This is high speed. We're recording in 2023. I've got Jeff on here. Jeff Hughes is the founder of Skill Samurai. If you can think about arming children with education around coding and robotics and all these cool opportunities that the kids have in front of us, this is the gentleman who's leading a charge and helping educate those kids. Jeff, welcome to the show today.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. It's a pleasure to have you. And you're based in Canada. We were visiting a little bit before, right? So let's talk about kind of where your company is today in terms of what Skill Samurai is doing. You know, with your I guess your headquarters is in Florida. You're in Canada, so let's talk about that a little bit as well. And kind of establish a baseline on where the business is, and we're going to tap into your founder story because I always think that's a really cool place to go. Why don't you give us an overview of Skill Samurai?
Yeah, so we are an enrichment education franchise, currently focused on computer programming and IT. And our goal is really to prepare kids for future careers. Education has a hard time keeping up, no fault of teachers or principals. It really is an outdated system. Mm-hmm. So we have been really spreading in the last year, growing. We have franchise in Canada, the United States, Australia, and Singapore. And in the past year, we have, I think, 17 new ones opening in the U.S. Wow. 4 in Australia. I just came back from training their first batch of franchisees. And then we have, a number of development deals. So altogether, we have probably 60 additional ones that will be opening over the next 5 years. So we're really excited about that, about the types of owners that we're attracting and the partnerships that we're building right now. As more schools, more YMCAs are looking for help to prepare their kids.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So why Singapore?
A couple early on, you're just going where people are finding you. So they found us and said, "Hey, could we bring this here?" I looked at it and I said, "Yeah, let's do it."
That's cool.
Yeah. So it wasn't really planned, but it works. So you just kind of take the opportunities as they are brought to you.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I hear about Australia, US, Canada, some typical expansion markets. Mm-hmm. Singapore was a little bit of an outlier there. So that's super, super cool. I want to talk about what it is that you guys offer, who the kids are that you serve. So I think the ages are what? Is it 8 to 14-ish that are?
Yeah. Right up through the end of high school nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are the skills you guys are teaching those kids?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our focus is on, by the time they're in high school, that they would be certified for entry-level careers. So as early as possible, our kids are using real programming languages. So the same things they'd be using at, Google or Facebook. We try as much as possible for them to be using programs like Python and JavaScript, which are really popular programs, but they're doing it in fun ways. So they are learning how to make modifications for Minecraft using JavaScript or creating their own games using Python. And we market to parents. If you think about it, kids will want to do this. We're in the same category as sugar cereals. Kids walk down the aisle, they see the box, they want it. But the parents, most of the time, will still read the label and see that there's at least some nutritional value.
Right.
And parents are coming to us because, like most parents, they want to prepare their kids for the future. They want to make sure that they're giving them everything that they can. and they don't know how to do it. They don't know what classes, what programming languages to be teaching them. If they're like a lot of us, they don't even know how to do it themselves. So they turn to a company like ours and say, hey, how can we make sure our kids are prepared? And we're not selling a 1-hour coding class. What we're selling is that parents' confidence that when the time their child graduates, they're ready for a high-paying career.
That's awesome. And you guys operate on a recurring revenue model as well, right? It's like membership based.
Yeah. And we did that because originally, and a lot of our competitors sell an 8 or 12-week program, which is great until it's the week after Christmas. So they buy those first 3 months, and then you're expecting them to pay for another 3 months, January 1st.
Right.
And that's a tough sell. So with the recurring monthly membership, they sign up and they just get billed monthly until they pause it or cancel it.
That's awesome. Simple for the parents, simple for the kids, simple for you guys. And also, for people who maybe have not had a line of recurring revenue in your business. I mean, first of all, it helps your valuation and boosts the value of your company. But also it just, we have a decent line of recurring revenue in our business. And even during like the pandemic and everything, I wasn't bringing on new clients for my marketing company, but I also wasn't worried because I knew we had recurring revenue. Right. So it makes the business more fun, more fun to operate.
Yeah. And when you're not having to constantly sell to your customers every 4 weeks, makes it a lot easier.
It does. So I want to go back to why this business exists. Like, going back to, you started having ideas in 2014 about launching Skill Samurai. What led you to launch this business, and why this industry? Like what? Yeah. How'd you wind up here?
What happened. My business goal was to start a franchising business. Okay. So it wasn't starting like, hey, I want to start a business. It was, I want to start a franchising business. So everything I did early on was designed to start a franchising business. And like a lot of entrepreneurs, I probably wrote out 8 different business plans trying to find the best one. And like a lot of entrepreneurs, I started with a restaurant and thought I could do it with food first. Right. I bought a restaurant, rebranded it, increased sales, and realized I just bought myself a really expensive job. Yeah. So after 2 years, I sold that. But what that allowed me to do was, there was one franchising company in my city, propertyguys.com, and they were big fans of my restaurant. So I was able to leverage their love of my pizza into a job as a franchise coach. So I oversaw 40 franchisees. I learned about the importance of the franchisor-franchisee relationship. I learned what things you can change. I learned things like there are some people who will come to training. They just spent a lot of money on a franchise, come to training and disappear. And you're like, my wife would not let me do that. But they're just gone. So it kind of set me up for some of the realities of franchising. And then those guys were instrumental, mentoring me for the first 3 years of this business. But then getting into this one is where it gets kind of different. I was unemployed for like the 3rd time out here. It is, for like US listeners, it's very similar to New England. Think like Maine, very rural. My 2 degrees out here are useless. So I didn't want to be unemployed. I wanted to be self-sufficient. I began teaching myself computer programming and realized that I'm just not smart enough for it. Like to do that 8 hours a day. Right. I'm just not cut out for it. I lack the precision, to be writing lines of code. But through that, I realized that my kids' school had 3 computers for 300 kids. And other countries like Estonia had a comprehensive computer science curriculum, from kindergarten to grade 12. And my kids at the time would have been, why did you ask me this question? They were like younger. 6, 8, 13. And I thought, how are they going to be prepared for jobs if they don't have these skills? And secondly, I wanted my kids to have the skills if they ever found themselves unemployed and had problem solving ability that they can say, all right, I'm unemployed, but I can make websites. I can do these things. I can take care of myself.
Yeah.
So I talked to some other dads. They had the similar concerns. And from that, I created a website. I pre-sold camps in 3 different cities. They sold out. And then in one city, I didn't even have a location. So I wrote the parents. I said, hey, we've sold out here. Can any of you help me find a spot for these camps? Someone did. But then it was kind of off to the races. I expanded from 3 cities to 6 to 13. And again, all with that idea of what size markets will this work in? How can I run it so that I don't have to be there? So it could be easy to be run by university students so that ideally these future franchisees could have a system that could be replicatable.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Why did you specifically want to start a franchising business?
Really, the value is 2 parts. One, having someone carry my vision in local cities that I can't do. I was running this in 13 cities. I could not have the contacts at the school board and with principals. And the second part is I always liked that idea of creating something that I could sell that has recurring revenue, that has other people doing the business and providing revenue back to me. Yeah. So franchising was a great fit to do that. It really checked those boxes off. Say, all right, can I create something of value that people want to bring to their community? Would give them an income and also give me an income. So franchising is that model for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's like that ultimate validation that you built something cool that somebody values, and that feels good as a creator who takes a shot on something, right? A big shot. They're like, hey, I'm going to go start this business. I'm going to go. I mean, so the 13 that you had, those were corporate owned.
They were summer camps. Yeah. So I was running those through the summers with like 2,600 kids.
Oh my gosh.
In Canada, we had really severe lockdowns during COVID. And I was running the programs in public universities and colleges. So for like almost 3 years, they were shut down to third parties renting. So that kind of ended that part of my business. And also the franchising side just requires more time. So I had to really decide which one can I focus on? And the franchising and helping those other owners is really the main way I spend my days now.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's some unpredictable stuff. So you've got this kind of event-based business, really. And then all of a sudden, hey, the place that we're going to host the events is no longer available. Coinciding with that, your franchise takes off. What's a typical location look like that one of your operators is, that they own? Like, is it a brick and mortar physical lab where kids go? And is there an online e-learning component? Let's talk a little bit about that, how you're structured.
Yeah, we have 2 different models. One is on the go. So they rent in temporary spaces, churches, community centers, schools, YMCAs. So the startup cost is much lower. Yeah. And I'm all about helping them meet their goals. And then we do have a brick and mortar version as well. Okay. So some people set that up. They're about 1,200 square feet. And they both work. So we have one owner he's in 5 different YMCAs, 4 different YMCAs in the Houston area, a different one each day. Other owners are in elementary schools because the schools are asking us to come after school. So he's going to 5 different schools every day, and he's just sending out like his university students with their laptops, and they're running programs there.
That's really cool. I mean, talk about if you have what would you call that model where you guys are installing them into a YMCA? Do you have a name for that? What that type of franchise is?
On the go.
On the go.
Yeah. Because typically they're just having that in their car and they can be in a different spot every day.
Yeah. I would think that would be a very attractive model to the right entrepreneur who doesn't want, physical wear, wants a pretty lightweight business. It's pretty simple. I mean, you've got, from an overhead perspective, you got, like you said, the tutors, the kids who are the college kids, hopefully, and some technology, and that's about it, right?
Yeah. And that's how I was doing it. So I was able to get 100 students a week at 5 different schools.
Yeah.
If you break it down and say, are there 20 kids at this school who would want this? There usually is. So a lot of our marketing for both models is network based, going and talking to the principals, talking to the heads of the PTA, and building those relationships to get us into the doors.
Yeah. I also think it's cool that you're in academia from a K through 12 perspective. We're blessed in our school district that our kids go to where they did get computers, at kindergarten. It was a blessing and a curse, as we were talking about earlier. It was kind of on-ramp to technology, got forced on pretty quickly. But I don't think that's the norm. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I think that our education foundation has gone out and raised that money to allow the children to have them. But in places like where your kids go to school, 1 to 100 ratio. And I think that's more the norm. And so that's cool that you guys are not only able to augment what the schools are doing, but also work with them as your, I guess they'd be your client, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We've really changed our model to partnering with schools. Yeah. So we have some districts asking us to come in every day and do all of their computer teaching.
Really?
Because last year, and it could be 2021 now, in the US, 25 teachers graduated with a focus on computer science. So
that's it?
Yeah. Even if you fill a school with all the laptops, robots, 3D printing, a teacher still has to learn on their own time how to teach with that. Right. And a lot of schools are just, they have so many other things they need to teach that adding this is a problem. Wow. And then for the schools like yours who already have it, that kind of does our job for us. We used to have to tell parents why coding was important. We don't have to teach that now. Now they're saying, all right, my kid loves this, just like sports or music. How can we get more of that in their life?
Yeah. Yeah. Make that well-rounded kid, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Kind of falls in that extracurricular fun bucket. We sent our son to a coding camp. Sorry, it's one of your competitors. Locations here. But he really enjoyed that. Like, I think, there were 2 components to it. Number one, he got to meet new friends. And that was super cool. Like, and I think he saw some familiar friends in the community that maybe he plays soccer with or something like that, but they don't go to school together. But number 2, not only did he, they did some stuff with Minecraft. So not only did he enjoy that process, but I also saw him come home and share some of that stuff with his sister, his younger sister, and be like, hey, look like what we did. Right. So it's super, super cool because it can trickle down to maybe some of the younger kids in the family as well. If the older sibling's going and, the younger sibling typically wants to be like the older one in one regard or another. So,
and we get, you'll find, we attract a lot of kids who may not fit in sports. Yeah. So we had a boy named Nick, one of our first years. He lived in a rural community, farming community. He was in middle school. And kids at his school just didn't value that he was good at computers. So he came, and within 2 hours, he was helping leading games. He was walking around, helping the other kids. His mom called that night and wanted to know if we would open up a school for him because his personality just like switched on. Right. He became so confident. We had him come back another week as a volunteer. Eventually we had him come back as staff, because he found his tribe. He found a group of people who valued what he did, what he was good at. And because of that, he was happy to share it.
He felt valued, exactly. His peers in school weren't, right? What an awesome thing. Because anytime we can boost our children's confidence, like that's a good thing. Give them some wins and something that they excel at. What's your, if you think about the fact that you've been franchising basically, what's the math here on your year? So you've been at it for, let's just say this is you're entering your 4th or 5th year.
Yeah.
You went from mentoring kids and holding these camps So those were your customers, or actually the parents were. Now you've got franchisees as your customers. How did you make that leap? Was that an easy leap for you? Because a lot of franchisors don't anticipate the shifting of the hat and going from, hey, I'm having a B2C conversation. Whoa, I'm having a B2B conversation. Sometimes you're having those at the same time. How did you manage that? Was that an easy thing for you, the kind of identity transformation?
Yeah, I say that I'm not a good salesperson. And I'm not that hard sell guy. So for me, that was hard. And it's also hard early on because you don't want to lose the sale. So you find yourself sharing way too much. And in the process, you'll scare the person away and they won't sign up. So I had to, early on, work with franchise sales organizations as soon as I could kind of make that work. Because I was just blowing too many of them.
You get on there and just diarrhea of the mouth and scare them off. Yeah. Because you're so excited about your thing, you're like, hey, right.
Yeah. And I had scripts. I still have scripts. I can't follow them. I just start talking and have a conversation and tell them lots of things. So understanding that there is a schedule and a way to release that information, not bad stuff. But there's a way to do that maintains their excitement, keeps them interested. And you build the interest, then you show them, all right, this is what it's going to cost. These are some of the drawbacks. You don't want to do that all on the first call. So I needed to really find people who could help with that. It's easier now. I still do some of the international development. And I do still have to follow the script. So I have to follow like the PowerPoint presentation and do those things. Because they're designed that way for a reason. So, having those sales calls was a switch. I never thought I'd be selling franchises or working on deals that are of the value some of these are.
I know.
So it is shocking at times to think, all right, this is what we just did today, and that's amazing. Because during our first year, I had an alert on my phone. So a kid would sign up for camp, it would ding. And my kids would run over to a whiteboard on the fridge and mark it off.
Yeah, well, it was like a party, right?
It was. And it was like an $89 item. Yeah. And now the franchises are like $49,000. And I'm like, I sold a franchise. And they're like, are you excited? I'm like, not the same way I was like with that $89 item.
Isn't that weird though? Because like we've got an e-commerce store, and every time I used to have, we got Shopify, and you can have the app go cha-ching every time you make a sale. And I'll tell you, like these little $30 sales in our franchise where we sold our first SKU of fill in the blank supplement or whatever. I'm like, that's so much, like, that's so cool.
Exactly.
It's a drop in the bucket revenue wise, but it's something about like that early feedback loop that gets you excited about what you're building and keeps that momentum going.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it is still, I think you just realize at this stage, like, how much work that means. Like, all right, we sold this one and now we need to get them on and help them at the next stage. But it is still exciting. I don't mean to discredit that, but there is something about those initial sales, like you said, where you're like, this idea is working. Parents are on board. My kids are excited. They're participating in that process.
And that's what I wanted to talk about next, because I bring my kids into the business as much as they want to be into the business, meaning exposing them to things that we do at our companies. How old are your kids now?
14, 16, and 20.
Okay. So they've watched dad build this thing through some very formative years. I have to think that's going to make them sharper, just professionals, whatever they end up doing. I have to believe that when our kids see us sometimes come home and we've got the weight of the world on our shoulders, sometimes we come home and we've had a huge win, right?
Yeah.
But I have to think that makes them stronger human beings when they see their parents go build something, and then see other people buy into their parents' vision. They're like, hey, that's really cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. And we, one year my kids wanted to ironically go to like a horseback riding camp. And we don't offer horseback riding. So I said, well, we'll run a spring break camp and you guys can work it yourself and take the money and go to camp. So even just through having those kind of abilities, so the kids ran it. The girls were like 10 and 12. They ran the games. My son would have been 16. He helped with the teaching. So through that, they could say, all right, I want something. How can I make the money to get it? And that's really what entrepreneurship is. And that's what I want them to know. Like, if you want something, be creative, find a way to generate that income and buy what you want, rather than just asking for it or hoping for it. You can actually make those things happen.
Heck yeah.
So, and the girls, early on, they were doing check-in. My son, even when he was probably 13, he was mentoring the younger kids. And then through most of high school, he did our social media. And then through that, he got other clients. So he would say, hey, I'm doing social media for these guys. And then I was able to show him, all right, using a company like Fiverr, you can outsource the graphic design. And he was doing social media for multiple restaurants. And now he's doing marketing. So, he really saw it kind of firsthand, and got involved, hopefully learned some skills that he can, use himself and again, make revenue for himself.
That's really cool. So, like, have any of your children given inclination that they want to be involved in the business when, they kind of get through their education?
Yeah, my son has. The girls have wanted to be teachers since they could do anything.
Really?
But one of the things with girls typically, and it used to be that, like, they're not saying, oh yeah, I want to become a programmer. What they're saying is, how can I solve this problem? Oh, computer programming could help me do that. So, my youngest had a school project, and what she came up with, it was she wanted to have a way that kids on weekends could order food from like the school or for the district, in a non-embarrassing way. So her and I built an app on her phone, and they could just go to it if they needed to order food on Saturday or Sunday. So she learned how to make an app because of a problem she was trying to solve. And that's much more a way that girls will come to it. Like, oh, I want to make art. I want to tell stories. I want to solve a problem. They're not saying, oh, I want to become an engineer and write code.
Right. That's actually really cool, because you're right. It's just problem solving. It's like, hey, I've got another way to problem, and also it gets their mind in the problem solving mindset as well. You may not use code, but you have this, in your DNA and your knowledge base, and you're going to take that into the real world and be able to analyze problems. And what I found is that life is just about problem solving. I mean, it really is. If you can solve problems, you're going to be able to create value, do all the things that you need to do to be an amazing human being in the world. If you can't problem solve, you're probably stuck, right? Right.
And that's what we found. As parents, you try to eliminate as many problems as you can for your kids. So you solve a lot of things. And there has to be some line where you're like, all right, you need to fail this time or these couple times. And problem solving is a big thing that we teach in a safe way in class, because computer programming fails more than it succeeds, especially the first time. So how can they learn resilience? How can they learn how to solve their own problems or with a team, is really a skill that's missing, because all of life at the moment is designed to remove those problems.
Yeah. Removing the adversity. Right. And you guys I love what you're doing, because we talk about safe to fail experiments. You've created a safe to fail place. Hopefully the kids are, they don't fail, but it's a safe, cool environment where, they're not getting a grade.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that the grading process of particularly elementary school, the K through 12, put some pressure on kids, maybe take some of the fun out of it. Maybe they're really into math, but they have to do it for a grade. And it can kind of, anything that you do that you get graded on, it can kind of suck the fun out of it. So I love the fact that you're creating that space, the safe space for kids to go get knowledge and learn. And I love the example of the young man who wasn't, seen eye to eye with his peers. They weren't valuing what his skill set was, and able to provide that confidence boost through something he can be really good at. I mean, that's you're doing awesome work. Thank you. Yeah. So if people want to learn more about Skill Samurai, like, what's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, right on our website, skillsamurai.com. would have all the information there, links to franchising, links to our programs and our location so they could find one near them.
That's awesome. Jeff, I deeply appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for sharing your story with our audience. I know that there's little nuggets here that are going to help other franchisors on their journey. So thank you again for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Hey, I'm your host, Kevin Oldham, and today's conversation with Jeff, if you found it valuable, or maybe you've got a friend who's thinking about franchising or could use some business lessons, do me a favor and share that episode with one friend right now. If you like our show, Franchise My Business, we're a new show. We just launched beginning of January. We've got over 25 episodes recorded with amazing entrepreneurs like Jeff. We would love for you to subscribe on the platform of your choice. Until next time, I'm your host, Kevin Oldham. This is Franchise My Business. Thank you. Be well and have a phenomenal day.